With my 35 years of experience, our team at US Asset Management can deliver professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call US Asset Management today and let's get to work in your financial future.
The left is siding with illegals, attacking ICE, and fighting to let non-citizens vote. Republican Kelvin King is a graduate of the Air Force Academy, Air Force veteran, and conservative businessman. As Georgia's Secretary of State, Kelvin will put Americans first, root out corruption, clean up voter rolls, and restore confidence in our elections. The other candidates had their chance and failed. Republican Kelvin King for Secretary of State, leadership Georgia voters can trust.
Pro-Trump warrior Steve Gooch won't just cut property taxes in Georgia. He'll throw them straight in the wood chipper.
Senior citizens on fixed income shouldn't be forced from their homes. Neither should veterans who have served our country and fought for our freedoms. And neither should anyone else for that matter. Frankly, these crazy property taxes are un-American. I'll tear them to shreds. We'll make home ownership great again.
Steve Gooch for Lieutenant Governor. Toughest tax cutter Georgia's ever seen.
Do you already have your investments with Fidelity? I'm David Cross with US Asset Management. Did you know that you can assign your investment management to my team and put my 35 years of experience to work for you? You simply assign us as your investment manager and you keep the same username and password. Professional management, and you get to work with someone who shares your values. Call US Asset Management today and put us to work for you.
What happens in Georgia gets revealed one by one as the facts are unsealed. From the pit comes what they don't want you to see. When the daily nugget of truth is dropped with your host, BKP.
And we're back. I'm your host, BKP, and you're watching BKP Politics on voiceofruralamerica.com. How are you this Monday? So last week we put several videos out. We put several articles out on our Substack. This week we're going to attempt to try to get 3 videos out, maybe more this week. This is our last week before the election next Tuesday week, right? Tuesday week. That would be May 19th is election day. We have several things going on today. I have a meet and greet tomorrow. I have a meet and greet Thursday. I can't remember where they're at. But Wednesday night, I'm going to Banks County GOP. Several of our good friends have invited me up there. Candidate for Attorney General Brian Strickland will be there. Candidate for Lieutenant Governor David Clark will be there. Candidate for Governor, the Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones will be there. And then Friday night, I'm going to be in Walker County with our good friend Roy Hambrick, Small Town Underground. Roy's a good guy. He asked me a long time ago if I would do a pre-election show with him. A long time ago, I said, sure, I'll do it with you. So we're doing it Friday night from 7 to 9, 2 hours. And it's going to be live. Roy gave me the green light. So Roy Hambrick, Small Town Underground, Friday night, we're going to break down every race. We're just going to say it. Now, before we get deep into our subject matter for today, I want to send you over to, this is a really good article. I read it this weekend. my sincere apology to people out there that write so many great articles, and I do read them. And but this one right here is Mark Davis, Solving Georgia's Massive Residency Fraud Problem. Mark Davis, go look him up on X. Solving Georgia's Massive Residency Fraud Problem. We can fix Georgia's residency fraud problem. Here's how. It's a very good article. It gives history, Georgia law, what has happened, and how we can fix that. That's a great article. Now, so here is how we're going to start, because there's going to be a couple different things going into next week in the election, all right? And we're going to start out with the Senate just briefly, because we're going to pull that over into Rick Jackson and Burt Jones. Now, the Senate candidate for to run against John Ossoff, we have three major options. There is Brigadier General, retired Brigadier General Jonathan McCollum is running, and he did get 1% in the poll. We'll show you that in a minute. But the three top candidates, Buddy Carter, Mike Collins, and Derek Dooley. Now, this is getting interesting because there's going to be a couple things happen here. Remember, I've always said if Brian Kemp would have campaigned truly for Herschel Walker. Now, Herschel Walker was in a runoff, and Brian Kemp was running for governor himself. He had won against Stacey Abrams, and at that time, he gave the illusion he was supporting Herschel Walker. That's all I'm going to say. And Herschel Walker was running against Raphael Warnock. But here's where I'm going with this. This is where we really want to focus on. This is going to take us right into the Georgia race, and this is going to take us right into President Donald J. Trump, and this is going to take us into Trump continues to exist or he's out. Governor Brian Kemp bets his clout can lift Derek Dooley. The test is almost here. So Governor Kemp has really campaigned for Derek Dooley. I mean, really, seriously, some serious campaigning for Derek Dooley. Mike Collins is still the lead in this race. We'll go on to that right here. All right. And here's the next one up. So here's Derek Dooley, and there is Brian Kemp and Marty Kemp. Marty Kemp has played an enormous role in this campaign with her husband, the governor, Brian Kemp, with their candidate, Derek Dooley. And at no time were the Kemps, plural, going to get behind anyone else. And this is the campaign they're most interested in. Now, I don't know the name of the company. I don't know what it is. But all of our sources in the past have told us that Brian Kemp, Brian and Marty's daughter, Amy Porter, was involved with a fundraising company, right? A group that does fundraising that's handling the fundraising for Derek Dooley. That's what we have been told here. So not only is this their candidate, all the fundraising that comes in, it's quite the payoff for their daughter, Amy Porter. That's exactly what we understand. That's never been refuted. And that's what we are told, that Amy Porter, daughter, is fundraising for Derek Dooley. Now, how does money come in enormous amounts? If Derek Dooley goes into a runoff, if he happens to be candidate 1 or 2 after May 19th, an enormous amount of money that's sitting on the sidelines all across the country that Brian Kemp has connection to will flood in. I think Mike Collins will struggle financially after, if Dooley's number 2, after May 19th, he will struggle and Dooley will have the cash advantage. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money that sits on a sideline of a campaign. That's just the way it works. A lot of money sits there. And it waits for different points to move. And one being May 19th. So Brian Kemp and Marty Kemp are putting the shoe leather in. They're campaigning all over the state. I have not seen Brian Kemp. There's a reason we're going with this. This is very important. And I'll tell you why. I have not seen online betting markets briefly rattle Georgia's U.S. Senate race. Poly markets, that's what it's called. When you bet on the race, Derek Dooley was way up there. Now, here's a nice little close-up. Here is Derek Dooley, former Derek Dooley, Vince Dooley's son, major coach hero over at UGA, Vince Dooley. This is his son, Derek Dooley, former head coach of Tennessee Volunteers. There's Brian and Marty keeping a close eye on their candidate. Now, trying to adjust my volume. I hope it's okay there. But anyhow, if Derek Dooley is in the runoff, cash comes off the sideline. An enormous amount of cash gets put in. And Brian Kemp, if that amount of cash gets put into this race, and I mean an enormous amount, not only would that be Kemp with his political clout, Kemp basically at the top of the ticket, but not at the top of the ticket, we'll explain, and money pouring in, which would benefit Brian and Marty's daughter, Amy Porter, as we understand. Okay? Now, here's some polling data. AJC, Brian Kemp's approval rating. So, Brian Kemp says strong approve, Republicans 55%, somewhat approve 30%, somewhat disapprove 7%, strongly disapprove 4%. So before you start throwing the rotten fruit and the rotten tomatoes at the screen, this is an AJC poll concerning Governor Kemp and his popularity in the state right now. So this is what they're saying. Can Brian Kemp pull Derek Dooley over the finish line? Now, another thing I want you to remember on this popularity, right here is where you got to pick this up. If Dooley wins the nomination, this popularity transfers to the general election. I'll explain in just a minute. So here is an AJC poll, and it says Mike Collins is at 22%. Now keep in mind, at the bottom here, two things. It is an AJC poll, so we're not putting all of our eggs in that basket. But this race still has a 54% undecided, much like a lot of the races on the Republican side and Democrat side going into next Tuesday, May 19th. But right now, Mike Collins, 22%, Buddy Carter showing at 13%, Derek Dooley at 11%. So if Collins is first and Dooley is second, does Buddy Carter's votes go over to Derek Dooley? Maybe. Where are the undecideds going to break? right? Now, I'm just telling you this for a reason, because if Dooley is in the runoff, the 99th, 11th, 34, 82nd time, little joke I used there, I can go on and on. The money will come off the sideline. I will tell you, I am seeing Mike Collins really get aggressive his campaign, putting some pretty ugly stuff out concerning Buddy Carter right now, but also running commercials on TV. Now, I'm pretty sure the Mike Collins campaign wanted to hold on to some of their money and not put it out there right now. So, who will be in the runoff? Who will be the nominee? Now, we're going to move right into Rick Jackson. Slow down. And here you go. There's a reason. Keep in mind that there's a couple, you could say, caveats here. There's different scenarios. First of all, there is no Trump-endorsed candidate for Senate. So no matter who wins the primary, there's no Trump at the top of the ticket against Jon Ossoff. Got it? Now, if Rick Jackson wins the primary, there's no Trump at the top of the governor's race there, all the way down the ticket. Only if Burt Jones wins the primary will a Trump-endorsed candidate be on the statewide ticket anywhere. That's why there is a strength and a movement to remove, right, Burt Jones from the ticket. Because if Derek Dooley, I have not seen Brian Kemp campaign like this. I have not seen him campaign, obviously in 2022 for his own reelection. But I have not seen Brian Kemp since 2018, since he was first elected in 2018, campaign for any candidate. Any candidate. He may say he endorses a candidate. He may even put some money behind a candidate. But I've not seen Brian Kemp campaign for a single candidate since 2018, since he first got elected, like Marty and Brian are campaigning for Derek Dooley. So Derek Dooley wins the nomination. Money comes off the sideline. More money comes off the sideline. Just think, if he's the nominee, how much money will fall into the campaign from donations that would benefit Amy Porter, the daughter, who is part of the fundraising team for Derek Dooley's campaign. Yes, this is also very big money. Obviously, it's politics. But the Kemps are not about to go. Now you're wondering, is Brian Kemp behind Rick Jackson? There's not been anything verbally said. There's not been a real motion. We are looking behind, peeling the onion to see the connection between Brian Kemp, or if he has favor to Rick Jackson. But if they can get Derek Dooley across the finish line for the general election, then they will be campaigning. Brian Kemp will campaign 7 days a week. And he will be pulling the ticket. For those that don't like this, don't want to hear it, stay with the facts. He will be pulling the ticket. And under no circumstances whatsoever does Brian or Marty Kemp want to pull the Republican ticket along for Burt Jones. They do not. They do not want Burt Jones to win the governor's race in a coattail situation off of Derek Dooley if they can make it happen. So that's one thing. So they need Rick Jackson to win so they can pull the ticket, because they won't have a problem anywhere down the line pulling the ticket as long as there's no Trump-endorsed candidates. One of the major goals here with Rick Jackson and Brian and Marty Kemp is to remove Trump totally and completely from the Georgia political landscape. That's the way it works. So, the other side, if Derek Dooley is not the nominee, the benefit money-wise, financially, to his family, the Kemps, and his interest to go get Mike Collins or Buddy Carter elected or any other candidate will not be there. Think about that right there as we move forward. Now, I've got a couple I want to run through. I've got a couple Substacks that I put out, and I just want to run through quickly here. We have the Red Ripple. Can Georgia really build a 12-2 super map, winning on maps in temporary winning on message is the mandate. That is about redistricting in Georgia. You're seeing a lot of people talk about this. Now, I've done a whole series on Rick Jackson, an entire series, where I have done research for hours and hours. This has got nothing against liking Rick Jackson. There's nothing here in any of my research that is personal with Mr. Jackson. It's just I've never been able to figure out why he's running, and once I started digging into the possibilities of why he is running, I just put it out here in these Substacks. And we must always say hello at this time for the uglies. You know, you out there, the uglies, you just say ugly things. You really don't read all the information. So the pipeline and the promise why Rick Jackson's empire imports labor instead of investing in Georgia's youth. We've got that on there. This is on our Substack, Vora, V-O-R-A, at BKP Politics. The North Fulton Firewall, how corporate ecosystem is spending millions to defeat MAGA in Georgia. We have that one on there. Then we have the Georgia Republican royalties, ultimate betrayal, why Rick Jackson is really running for governor. That one deals with help removing Trump from Georgia. The billionaire's vendetta, why Rick Jackson is out to destroy Burt Jones. We'll talk a little more about that today. All right. And we'll unveil some possible stunts of how it works. The phoniest campaign in Georgia, unpacking the gubernatorial debates and Rick Jackson's empty promises. So those are some of the Substacks out there, all right, that on our Vora, V-O-R-A, at BKP Politics, some of the articles we have. Now, for those out there that just go under the post and say, well, you don't like Rick Jackson and, you know, you're in the tank for Burt Jones or whatever, you know, they're not reading the articles. And just briefly, as I've said in the past, you know Burt Jones, you know Chris Carr, you know Brad Raffensperger, you know. So we had to look into Rick Jackson because I go to the AJC this morning, okay? And this guy has bought everything. So first of all, I am a constitutional conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. A constitutionalist. Did I already say that? It's worth saying twice maybe. And so when someone is a free market, America free market first, and they take $1 and they learn how to go out there and get up in the morning and go to work and turn it into $2, and then get up in the morning, go to work, not cheat anybody, lying, stealing, cheating, and turn it into $4. I applaud you. I applaud hard work. I respect hard work. I am a capitalist. All right? But when you become a billionaire, and maybe it's through hard work and you become a billionaire. Bernie Marcus, Home Depot example, whatever. But buying an election. Now, what some people might say to me is, oh, so what is the guy's name? Tom Steyer? Is he he's running for governor as a Democrat out in California? Billionaire. Donald Trump, a billionaire. But buying an election. Should we be applauding that billionaires are now setting the standard on who can run for office and just buying the election? So I go to the AJC this morning, right? I read the AJC whether you like it or not. And Jackson has bought the entire AJC. About six ads. Here is one. Early voting is underway. He'll slash income tax in half and freeze property taxes, or he won't run again. Now we're going to talk about that. What is with that not run again? Why? Here's another one. There was about 6, right? Georgia's property taxes have exploded. Rick Jackson will freeze property tax or he won't run again. Okay. And here's another one briefly. Georgia doesn't need another career politician just looking for money and power. Georgia needs someone who thinks of others first. Now, these are just all political statements that have no genuine feeling, or they're not very sincere. Because the property tax, we'll talk about that, and his inability to do what he says he wants to do. And the fact that career politicians, he may not run for office, but he knows the lobbyist game very, very well. He knows the line, the politician's pocket very, very well. He knows the game. He knows the players. He knows how it works. But these are just some. So we had about 6 ads on one website alone this morning. Now, this is one that I really enjoy. I'll get you a boatload of your money back or I won't run again. Again, with the I won't run again. Continuing with the I won't run again. But he'll get a boatload of your money back. Right? It's almost like he's handing out these promissory notes everywhere he goes. And he has a line of senior, what did Rush used to call them, seasoned citizens, lined up, right? So politics is a manipulation game. It is a pure manipulation game. It is what I will do for you, what I will give you, and how I can make you feel that me alone, can make your life better. All the above. And there's professionals that write this stuff. And what Jackson has done, and I know what they've done, their team goes places, and every single person that comes up that tells him one of their stories, and he does listen, they record it, and they go back and break it down, and they'll put it up on pictures and just make statements. And, you know, I met this lady today, and she is going to lose her property because she can't pay her property tax. Or I talked to these people in this town, and, you know, They can't pay all their bills, whatever it may be, health, wealth, well-being, financially, whatever struggles. And then they go back and they write these bullet points and these paragraphs that when he goes out and he gives speeches or he goes on radio shows and does different interviews, he sounds as though he's really listening to the people across the state. Everything is manufactured. It's all manufactured. Okay, now, so I'll get you a boatload of your money back or I won't run again. There with the boatload of money. So let's talk about the boatload of money. Let's talk about that. This guy, total contribution, this guy has put $73,482,000 in the bank. Now start zeroing in here, start putting things in 2020, start focusing and pay attention to what I'm about to say. Because this guy is changing the entire landscape of Georgia for whose benefit? You think he's spending $74 million? We haven't even gotten to the runoff. So he can get your property tax froze. So he could stand up to the cartel under the Gold Dome? You think so? Because you're going to have to come into full focus about what this guy is doing to your state. Now, and on top of this, $74 million, right? He loaned himself another $10 million. At the end of the month, he loaned another $10 million to the campaign. Folks, we are going to, election day is May 19th. So, according to this, that I can gather, almost 73,500,000 with another 10, 83,500,000. Now, this is where you got to focus. I'm going to ask this question. All right? I'm going to ask this question. This is a quote from Rick Jackson. This is a quote. This is not my money. This is God's money. I'm using that money in order to make a difference in people's lives. That's what I'm all about. I've been doing that for at least 15 years of my life. Now, okay, it's God's money. You really want me to believe that God told Rick Jackson to take $85 million, feed the hungry, pay the widow's property tax, grow his work and philanthropy, is that what it's called? In foster care? Give more money to pro-life organizations? I don't know. It's not my call. But God told him to put $85 million. Now, the reason I asked that question is, you see, yes, Rick Jackson has a humble beginning. But he's using it. He's using it to pull on your emotions. He's using it for you to feel for him. You don't need to feel for this guy. This guy doesn't live in your world. Unless you're out there and you're in the high 100, 200, 300 million, and you're in that ballpark, and you're racing towards the billion or something? You're not in this guy's wheelhouse. You're not. So this guy right here, what sacrifice has he truly made? Oh, he gives a lot of money for false. No. Sacrifice. You sacrifice every day for your family. So, okay. Now, remember, 85 million. I want you to think about something, because here's where we're going to start thinking of the landscape, thinking about what this guy's done, thinking about buying elections. You may say, well, it's his money. He can do whatever he wants. Independent and PAC spending. The $10.5 million figure presented only the official campaign's direct expenditures outside political action committees, which are barred from directly coordinating with candidates, also spend money on Casey Cagle's behalf. So keep this in mind. We're going to talk about political PACs. We're going to talk about Casey Cagle, former lieutenant governor, ran for governor, got into a runoff. He had some political PACs. Changing Georgia's Future, the pro-Cagle super PAC, spent $1.5 million. Georgia Conservatives Fund, another independent group backing Cagle, spent $2 million, right? Despite the massive financial disadvantage totaling well over $13 million in combined direct campaign and PAC spending. That's $13 million. Now we're going to get back to this one here in just a minute. I want to show you something. Right? Brian Kemp, the governor, 2018. Now we're just talking right now the governor's race. While Casey Cagle was heavily funded establishment favorite, Brian Kemp ran a leaner, more grassroots-focused campaign during the Republican primary and runoff. Despite being outspent by roughly 2-to-1 margin in the primary phase, Kemp secured the nomination, following a late-stage endorsement by President Trump. Here's the breakdown of Brian Kemp's campaign finances during the 2018 primary and runoff period. All right? Estimated primary and runoff spending, Kemp's campaign spent $4.5 million to $5 million from the beginning of the primary to July 24th. Are you dialed in? Because 2018 is the last time we had open primaries in the Republican Party all the way down. 2022, yes, we had primary challengers to incumbents. But 2018 is the last time. Look at what he is taking us to in 2026. Brian Kemp was able to beat Casey Cagle, the sitting lieutenant governor, in the lieutenant governor running against him in the governor's race, in the governor's race with $5 million. $5 million. Right? That's it. And the runoff. That includes the runoff, right? Casey Cagle, right? $10,500,000 during the same period. Late stage runoff surge during the critical runoff window between April 1st and June 30th, 2018. Kemp's campaign spent $2.3 million while raising $1.6 million. Total. Now listen to this. Total 2018 campaign spending for the entire 2018 election cycle, including the heavily contested general election against Democrat nominee Stacey Abrams, Kemp's campaign ultimately spent $21.4 million. $21.4 million, right? We'll do this right here. Let's do this. I have it here. Hold on just a minute. 75. We're gonna put down 75 million for. We're not gonna add the 10 in right now, just to be doing it. 75. We're gonna call Rick Jackson 75 million minus 21 for. Rick Jackson has put in roughly $53,600,000 more dollars in the primary for this race. $53,600,000 roughly, in a round number there, more in the primary of this race that Brian Kemp spent in the entire election, even against Stacey Abrams. Are you bringing that into focus? Are you thinking about that? Right? Well, he just loves his state. He just wants to do the right thing. And really? Casey Cagle's 2018 gubernatorial campaign spending, the campaign spent $10.5 million over the course of the primary and the runoff. So Casey Cagle spent double of what Brian Kemp spent in the Republican primary, including the runoff, but it was only $10,500,000 only. Look at what Rick Jackson has done to our, Republican primary. Look at the purchase, in my humble opinion, of an election. Now, why would he spend this much money? Why? Now, I will tell you this. You're going to get shocked when you find out, when this is done and over with, if you get all the disclosures. And what someone's going to say to me is, well, campaign spending and things like that, it is public. Not dark money. No, not dark money. And when you're spending your own money, things can happen. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they're doing it. But when I receive a phone call from someone that chairs a county GOP and tells me that they personally told Rick Jackson the integrity of the county party was not for sale. So you'll just have to figure this out later. You'll have to, strangely in politics, try to figure out who's being honest. But how many Republican Party, county parties have received donations, right? Where all this money has gone to, what it has purchased. It's enormous. And actually, that's where I'm at. Are we selling elections? So here are some of the campaign promises. All right, let's go into his campaign promises. Freeze cutting property taxes. Jackson has repeatedly stated that property taxes are a massive burden on homeowners making the property taxes, noting that property taxes have increased at double the rate of the cost of living in the recent years. Okay? So what they have done is they've done polling, because we're going to call it like it is. They've done polling because here's the bottom line. All right. Senior citizens vote in the primary. Rick Jackson's MO is to get Trump supporting senior citizens to vote for him. He goes everywhere he goes. He promises, I'll freeze property tax. I'll get rid of this. I'll get rid of that. I won't run again. And it's just to get a narrow lane with senior citizens during the primary. And polling says the property tax issue is goes very high on the polling with senior citizens. So he's going to slash the state income tax in half. Jackson is campaigning heavily on the promise to cut Georgia's state income tax rate in half within the first 4 years and work to eliminate the entire within 8. That's exactly what they work on now. All right? Jackson is now talking affordability. In interviews such as his comprehensive policy breakdown with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Jackson summarized these goals under the umbrella of affordability. Jackson doesn't understand affordability, folks. He does not live in the same world as you do. The underlying campaign philosophy, the pledge, heavily aligns with his overreaching campaign message of being a results-oriented outsider, a businessman. Now, he has gone all across the state, he has, and they have spent the money, and they have hired social media influencers. They've paid social media influencers. They have people hired all across the state that are targeting any negatives about him. They go on and make comments, right? And he has people all across, everywhere he goes, pay someone to carry his water. Folks, that's $74 million, right? Now, we're going to go into a little more. I have seen how the system works firsthand, so I know it's left regular Georgians feeling left behind. I'm a conservative outsider, and I'm running to be your voice. Thank you, Harris County. So, yes, he has a full team. They take pictures, all right? They post them. He's going to be their conservative outsider. He's going to be their voice. Not going to happen, folks. Now, this one is of interest because he attacks Burt Jones. Hey, it's politics, so he's going to attack Burt Jones. Go ahead. Burt Jones, this is a X post by Jackson. Burt Jones says he'll eliminate property taxes is like an arsonist promising he'll put out the fire. Property taxes skyrocketed under Burt Jones, and his response was to block the House's property tax relief plan in the Senate just last month. So here's the thing. He's taking the House's side, all right? The House Georgia House of Representative John Burns. As you can see in here, he is taking John Burns' side in the Georgia House of Representatives, right? Now, if you really think Rick Jackson is going to become governor, and John Burns is going to saddle up side by side with him, and they're going to work on everything together, and it's all going to be perfect, really? You think so? No, it won't. You have to remember, I know some of you may cringe when I tell you this because some of you don't feel that we have anywhere in Georgia, the governor's office, the Senate, state Senate, or state House, any conservatives. But keep this in mind. The Georgia State Senate is the most conservative body under the Gold Dome. Now that is factual. Maybe not the most, but it is. The Georgia State Senate is the most conservative body under the Gold Dome. So every time Rick Jackson talks about, making it sound like he's going to make a deal with John Burns, that's the liberal side. Now the other thing is, he knows this is a lie. It is. It's a lie. Because bottom line, the governor of Georgia made a decision that this is how the legislative session was going to go, and this is what he was going to accept. You got to keep in mind, we have a heavy-handed governor in Georgia. Brian Kemp is very heavy-handed. And Brian Kemp sets an agenda at the beginning of the legislative session, especially this one being his last year, and he sends his floor leaders, and every day he sends word of what he will sign and won't sign. So the bottom line is, Rick Jackson can attack Burt Jones all day long about property tax and try to lead you to believe that Burt Jones did not want to do something about property tax, when he knows that Brian Kemp and what John Burns attempted was a political stunt just for a day like today for Rick Jackson, because what the House did concerning their bill on property tax, don't forget, required a constitutional amendment, and that required a 2/3 vote in the House on the House resolution to put it on the ballot for Georgians to vote to accept it. And John Burns knew all along he was never going to get it. But you know what John Burns knew? He knew he would have this day when Rick Jackson would get to say property taxes skyrocketed under Burt Jones, and his response was to block the House property tax relief plan. Now, that wasn't what happened. So, property tax relief, right? Now, here's what he says. I'm going to solve the property tax problem in Georgia, period. No, he's not. No, he's not, because you would have to change the Georgia Constitution, number one, right? That would make it permanent. Number two, if you pass just a bill and he signs it, then the next governor or the next legislative body can alter it or change it at any time. He knows he can't get a constitutional amendment passed because we're poised in Georgia to lose more Republican House seats and maybe 1 or 2 Republican state Senate seats. So Rick Jackson will have a much narrow lane, is it narrower or just a narrow? He will have a narrow lane that will continue to tighten, we'll say it that way, that he can negotiate any kind of tax relief. Now, the tax relief that has been negotiated in the past turns around and puts a burden on hardworking Georgians, as Brian Kemp would say. because they're going to put more fees, more licenses. You have to register more things, be different tax structures, sales tax. There's not a discussion on eliminating property tax, but changing your overall burden. And the overall burden comes at your local levels. So when Rick Jackson says, property tax have skyrocketed this much, and there's no way that the cost of overhead in local governments could have the same percentage, maybe Rick Jackson needs to pay attention. Maybe he shouldn't be running for governor. He should go to his local county commissioner meetings and find out how it works first. But if he doesn't do it, he'll get out. Here's another one. If you've ever wondered why some politicians just don't do the right thing, it's because they're totally beholden to their donors. Look at what this man is doing. So, he's not beholden to donors, but lobbyists, well, they're going to be in that office. They're going to be in that office. That's right. Jackson makes investments. He's a billionaire. He makes investments. He's not putting 75, in my opinion, because really I don't want them watching and trying to take me out for some reason. But in my humble opinion, no one put $75 million into something, $85 million and more, without a personal return in mind. Wouldn't you? Right? Just saying. Now, he's not said that, but now, I've not taken his pro-life position at all to task. If the man's pro-life, he says he's pro-life, okay? There's a lot of stories out there. But what I do is I can't stand political stunts. Everything about the campaign is a well-oiled, laid political stunt. All right? Now, he knows he's not endorsed by Donald J. Trump, period. Burt Jones is endorsed by Donald J. Trump. And he's taken heat over that. He's taken heat over giving money to Jeb Bush and several others. He's taken heat about his pro-life and Planned Parenthood. Not on this show, but for 30 years, I've given millions of dollars to pro-life causes. No one is more pro-life than me. It's not my money, it's God's money. Now, keep in mind, the $80 million or whatever, that's God's money too, for political use. Wow. All right, it's God's money. Now, this guy's a billionaire. His tax structure, 501c, his giving, so forth, right? What would you call it? Charitable trust, other things out there. So he has given millions of dollars. But as we said before, leaving $1 million to him and giving it to Donald Trump, when he says, I gave Donald Trump $1 million, that's like $100 tip at the restaurant for a billionaire. Okay? So I've given millions of dollars to pro-life causes. No one is more pro-life than me. It's not my money, it's God's money. My focus is on using it to have kingdom impact, and kingdom impact is pro-life. Now, okay, I don't disagree with that. I mean, what are you doing to impact the kingdom as a Christian? I don't disagree with that. And I'm not going to question this. I just want to know if he truly sees kingdom impact in the $80 million he's spending. All right? So, this happens to be Georgia Life Alliance. All right? Now, at Georgia Life Alliance Committee, our mission has always been to educate, equip, and advocate for the culture of life in Georgia and informed voters as an essential part of that mission. This is why GLAC is bringing you exclusive conversations with gubernatorial candidates. Now, here's the bottom line. He has really felt the heat in the pro-life community. He really has. The Planned Parenthood, he has felt this heat. So what do? When they go back, I'm just giving you a scenario of what the meetings inside may be when they do strategy. His team says, okay, we've got to, we got to push back on the pro-life. What do? Let's go interview Georgia Life Alliance. We've got to push back on this. Let's go do this. We got to push back here. Let's go do this. And that's what they do. And in my opinion, they say, okay, how do we do that? Well, we got to put a little money here. We got to put a little money here. Hey, they've put $73 million. I don't know who all's getting it. And if someone out there is not getting the money and you feel I'm implying you've been given money, you're more than welcome to send me a message and say, I do not get $1. Now, don't leave the out, as they say. I mean, because if you've got an LLC out there that it goes into, or you got a 501c where someone drops money, But if you emphatically say, I've never received a dime, I'm not involved with it, and you want me to, be clear on that, don't hesitate. Send that to me. I'll be glad to pass that along. Now, Georgia Life Alliance. Now, this is Team Jackson. Who do they attack? They attack Burt Jones. Team Jackson, May 9th. You see, they go, he's getting pushed back. He goes to Georgia Life Alliance, right? Georgia Life Alliance. He does the ad, or he does the interview, and the minute he does, why does Burt Jones refuse to sit down with Georgia Life Alliance and talk about if he's pro-life or not? Why can't you just leave it that your candidate's pro-life? Why this next step? Is this a possibility? Now, I'm just saying, is this a possibility? Is it Martha Zoller? Is it? Georgia Life Alliance board membership. I remember when Georgia Life Alliance was created. I remember when they were created, and Martha Zoller was instrumental in the beginning of the creation of Georgia Life Alliance. I'm not calling it a bad organization, but it is pro-life. I want to be careful here because I don't question people, all right? But it was originally set up as a political arm for candidates to go and present their pro-life chops when needed. Just saying. Martha Zoller, often misspelled, yes it is, indeed is a board member for the Georgia Life Alliance. This is what the research says. Here is the brief timeline of her involvement with the organization. In 2014, she was a key member of the founding board that helped launch Georgia Life Alliance, which serves as the state's affiliate of the National Right to Life Committee. Now, Georgia Right to Life, all right, I think that's what it was. They lost their accreditation. I call it accreditation. They lost their affiliation. All right? That's another story. Georgia Life Alliance jumped in and became the Georgia State affiliate for the National Right to Life Committee. Martha was very instrumental in 2014 of getting them their affiliation and getting this started. In 2022, Zoller temporarily took the helm as the interim executive director to guide the organization through a leadership transition. That's what the research says. But present, recent filings and public statements indicate she remains as an active board member of Georgia Life Alliance. So that's what it says. Now, the reason I'm saying that is, okay, when Rick Jackson first started his campaign, right? Now, I don't know. I do not know if in any way whatsoever Martha has benefited financially from the Rick Jackson campaign. I don't know that. But I do know this. Martha will carry a bucket of water or two for a candidate. Yeah, she will. She'll carry some water when Rick Jackson first started his campaign, there is Rick over there with Martha Zoller on her show at WDUN. Martha's a nice lady, but she is all political. And she knows how to make every political move. And just it could be very beneficial to her financially, could be. She's worked for a lot of different people. So when Jackson first came into the race in February, when he ran for office in February, he needed to get out there, went to Martha Zoller. So when Martha Zoller, also on the Georgia gang, we'll show you that in a minute, but when Rick Jackson is stumbling with his pro-life, he goes to Georgia Life Alliance. Just a coincidence. Just a coincidence. But they help him get his pro-life chops back out there front and center. Just saying, right? Then they turn around and attack Burt Jones. So, this is interesting. The Martha Zoller Show in February 2024, in an interview on a prominent Georgia conservative radio show. Prominent. You should be happy, Martha, that AI says prominent. Jackson expressed shock at the state of the housing affordability for long-term homeowners, stating it was a surprise to learn how bad the property tax burden has become over average citizens despite decades of Republican leadership in the state. He was shocked. The property tax burden. Now, what do we got? We got 73,400,000. Let me play this video for you. I'm going to play this video for you because this goes in part, we're going to show you in a minute, where Jackson plays on emotion.
I've met with thousands of people across Georgia. I've had 6 widows and 2 of them crying, coming up in line, saying, Mr. Jackson, the house that I raised my family in, I'm going to have to sell it because I can't afford the property taxes. That is just ridiculous that we would ever put a widow or somebody else in that situation, and I'm going to solve that problem. That is absolutely ridiculous from that standpoint. Now,
sorry about the high pitch there. I bet your dogs, sure hope there were no dogs in the room. Anyhow, yes, 6 widows six widows, two of them crying. They were going to have to sell their house because of the property tax. Well, I don't know, Mr. Jackson, they're crying and six widows? I'm for sure widows, right? Because the money is God's and it's for the kingdom, not passing judgment. But now, Mr. Jackson, you understand how the Bible instructs us to take care of the widows, right? So I'm for sure out of 73,400,000, before you loaned your campaign another 10 million, you got the names and numbers of each one of those widows. And without saying anything to anyone, you don't have to tell us. You went and paid their property tax or paid it for 3 or 4 years or something just so they didn't have to lose their home. I don't know. I mean, he's not obligated to do that. I mean, I don't know that people do that. I do know of people that, don't put their name out there and they pay people's doctor bills. It happens, right? But 6 widows, property tax. And he's amazed by it. Yes, he was amazed by the property tax. Yeah, it caught him off guard. I don't know why it would catch him off guard. Right? He's not in your world, folks. This is his property tax. Now, there's a reason. We don't have time to go into it, so this is not a controversy, and this is not a conspiracy, and this is not to be taken that way. But as you could see, he paid $99,554. That was in 2019. But if you notice, his property tax went down $55,000, somewhere in the area of $55,000. It went down to $37,451.97 in 2021. That's because he turned 65. I think that's when he turned 65. Forsyth County gives seniors property tax exemption. Forsyth County gives 65 and older school tax exemption, and there's no income cap. There's no valuation cap on the property. So it doesn't matter what your property's worth. It doesn't matter if it's worth, $20 million or whatever his property's worth. It doesn't matter. There's no value cap on your property or your income in Forsyth County. You just turn 65, you don't pay school tax anymore. But if you'll go and look up, because this is why Mr. Jackson seems to be just all of a sudden, caught off guard with this whole property tax thing. He didn't realize it was this bad. Well, somebody handles his property tax. It's nothing to him, $35,000. That's less than one of the cars he owns. Yes, exactly. The man pays less property tax than a car he owns on a 47,000 square foot house. That being said, but he's learning out there how rough it is. That's why he put 85 million. No. Anyhow, the property tax there, take a minute, go look at Forsyth County and the increase in the school budget there. Where are they getting the money from? So just a real quick one here, just to remind you, Martha was on the Georgia Gang this past Sunday. Now, here are some of the things. Rick Jackson is trying to play emotional games, all right? Now, he's also, he is all of a sudden caught on. All of a sudden, he is caught on to election integrity, the software in the Dominion voting machines, he's all of a sudden caught on. Why? Because he thought it was an issue? No. I told him it was an issue back in March. We're in May. So, Georgia gubernatorial candidate Rick Jackson says the state's election software is the worst software he's ever seen and calls for a major security reforms if elected. There is no way I would be able to convince myself that this is totally safe. Well, he doesn't want to get rid of Dominion voting machines. He wants a couple guys, as he said something, I don't have the quote. Well, we have a couple, we have a couple people down at Georgia Tech now, a couple students that can fix this. He says the technology is there to vote electronically. So if Rick Jackson's elected, he plans that your next election system will be an electronic voting system. He has been very clear on that. But now, so let's see. I started yesterday with an hour-long radio interview. I talked to tens of thousands of Georgians since getting in, including hundreds yesterday, from all walks of life: teachers, coaches, law enforcement officers, accountants, blue-collar workers. My message doesn't change. I hear you, and I'm going to fight for you. I will not let rural Georgia get left behind. Okay, here he is on another one right here. This isn't like any other campaign. We're building a movement for everyday Georgians who are ready for action. I'm Rick Jackson, a conservative outsider. I came from nothing and built a billion-dollar business with no outside investors. I've lived the American dream. He has people standing in line, and it's almost like he has not, quote, said this, but it's almost like they think if he gets elected, there's going to be an ATM card sent out or something. And all of a sudden, I mean, I don't know what people think are going to happen. Here's one. When I ran away from home, he goes in all these rooms and tries to play an emotional game. All right? Poor, pitiful Rick Jackson. I'm sorry. I think we should do everything we can to help the widow, to feed the hungry, the sick, the poor, the children that don't have homes, don't have moms and dads. Rick Jackson is not around the state talking about cleaning up the drug problems. Rick Jackson is not around the state talking about fentanyl. Rick Jackson's not around the state talking about so many things that have destroyed our communities. What they did is they pulled out of thin air the high polling taxes, property taxes, crime. My uncle used his $66 welfare check to send me to DFACS. His generosity is the only reason I'm here today. When you've struggled like I have, you don't forget the people who are still hurting. Folks, you cannot connect with this guy. You cannot make a connection with him. That day is gone and over. Someone called me the other day and said, I'll read this next one and then we'll get into it. He's trying to emotionally manipulate. He's trying to financially manipulate. Every single thing he can do is a manipulation to try to win. June lived in Techwood homes like me, so he found someone that lived in the projects. Like most Georgians, she never heard of me until February 3rd, when she heard my story. She was moved and she came to Fayette County GOP yesterday to share what was on her heart. I'm humbled by what she said, to have her support. Look, this campaign has not done this, because I want to be clear, all right? I get into a little satire. Is that what it's called from time to time? But, I wouldn't be shocked if this guy, not this guy, I wouldn't be shocked. Well, I better not say it. All right, so let's go into, remember this. I want to play one more video because we're getting ready to close. Because you can't connect to this guy, and he gets very angry when you talk about his no big contract.
Governor Kemp, to talk about how many people. I got a call from Governor Kemp to talk about how many people were dying during COVID. And that's what we responded. Our company was the only one in the world that could do this, and because we lived in Georgia, that was a high priority. And so we did everything we could, and we saved many, many lives, and I do not apologize for that. President Trump sent us the money. The feds paid for that. And why don't you just read the contract? We only get 1.5% of the revenue. The rest of the revenue goes to doctors and agencies all over the United States, and I don't believe that Governor Kemp would ever do anything wrong. He certainly did in this case. Thank you. I got a call from Governor Kemp to talk about.
So I don't think Governor Kemp would ever do anything wrong. Read the contract. I only get 1.5% of this right here, okay? And when Governor Kemp called, people were dying. Everything, he gets angry over this. He won't apologize for it, right? And the federal government paid for it. Now, a state of emergency, right? When a governor signs a state of emergency and the federal government signs a state of emergency, that's when your state can apply to the federal government to receive revenue. So let me just show you here. He gets very angry over the no big contract. Very angry. So when we have a natural disaster in the state of Georgia, and I don't know this exactly because you don't get to see his books. You don't get to see Jackson Healthcare's books. All right? But I'll just use this as an example. When we have a state of emergency in Georgia, you can't, and the governor calls you because you have generators. You don't get to charge double. The governor says we got a state of emergency and we need 1,000 generators. And a generator is $500. Well, you can up the profit, sure. But you can't say, well, we're going to now it's going to be 1,000 or 1,500. So let me show you this, because what a lot of people don't take into consideration is Governor Kemp signed a state of emergency over COVID. Governor Kemp initially signed a public health state of emergency for COVID-19 on March 14th, 2020. He gave a televised address. He announced the declaration that day, which followed the national emergency declaration made by President Donald Trump on March 13th. So on March 13th, the President of the United States, he's correct. Rick Jackson's correct. But he says the federal government gave us the money. What's it matter where I got it? No, the federal government didn't give you a dime. Taxpayers did. The federal government paid the bill. No, they did not. Taxpayers do. Now, I know that might be a slip of the tongue, but that always frustrates me. And the highest level is when any lawmaker says, well, the state of Georgia paid it. No, they didn't. You did. Well, the federal government did. No, you're paying for it now through this inflation. So Donald Trump did sign a national emergency declaration on March 13th. That's when, on March 14th, when Brian Kemp signed his, it made us available, right, for national emergency funds 2 days later, on March 16, 2020, Kemp called a special session in the Georgia General Assembly where lawmakers nearly unanimously ratified the governor's request, making the first time in Georgia history that public health state of emergency was confirmed by legislation. So, a public health state of emergency, it was confirmed by legislation. It gave Brian Kemp absolute power in the state, not that he's not powerful already, absolute power. Governor Kemp ultimately signed the final extension of the public health emergency on June 22nd, 2021, and the order officially expired July 1st, 2021. Now, he keeps saying, Governor Kemp called. People are dying. This is, okay. Yes, the public health state of emergency signed by Governor Kemp on March 20th, 2020 did grant him the authority to bypass the standard competitive bidding process for state contracts provided those contracts were necessary to respond for COVID-19. So what was signed and the legislature approved for Governor Kemp to sign during COVID on March 14, 2020, gave him the ability to bypass bidding on anything. The legal authority here is the law OCGA 38-3-51. When the governor declared the state of emergency, it activates emergency powers outlined in the Georgia Emergency Management Act. All right? Now, what does it affect? How it applied to COVID-19 contracts. How it applied to COVID-19 contracts. Standard state procurement laws require a lengthy competitive bidding process to ensure taxpayer money is spent efficiently and fairly. However, during the onset of the pandemic, states were in frantic race to secure limited resources because strict compliance with standard bidding procedures would have caused massive delays. The state of emergency allowed Kemp's administration to suspend those rules. It authorized state agencies to immediately execute no-bid emergency contracts for the pandemic. Here's what it was related to. Personal protection equipment like masks, gowns, and gloves. COVID-19 testing services and lab processing. Here's the one. Emergency medical staffing and temporary hospital facilities. Consulting and logistics services to manage the state's response. Emergency medical staffing and temporary hospital facilities. Now, you cannot go to Jackson Healthcare and pull their records to see how much the nurses got, how much they kept, because there is also this right here. You got to keep in mind. They're called crisis. All right? Crisis contracts. The cost of nursing staff pre-emergency versus state of emergency. The COVID-19 pandemic. Now, before we go any further, we do not know what parts of these are totally tied to Jackson Healthcare. But you hear Rick Jackson tell you they're the largest in the world. They're the number one in the world, he says. Or maybe he doesn't say number one. But they're the largest to be able to supply this need. He said it in the statement in a debate. The accuracy, I don't know as far as I'm not quoting right now. The cost of nursing staff, pre-emergency, state of emergency, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the subsequent state of emergency triggered a massive surge in the cost of healthcare labor in Georgia and nationwide. Hospitals went from utilizing standard employment models and typical temporary travel contracts to paying high inflated crisis rates. So what you got to understand, it now went into crisis. It was called crisis rates they were charging. Pre-emergency baseline 2018-19. Before the pandemic, hospital labor costs was relatively stable, and following figures represent the average pay of staff nurses in Georgia. Registered nurses, I don't know how accurate this is. Registered nurses, $36 to $41 an hour. ICU critical care nurses, $36 to $45. Licensed practical nurses, $25 to $27. Again, I don't know. Before 2020, travel nurses earned anywhere to $1,500 to $1,800. When they got crisis contracts, right, state of emergency, it went to crisis rates, 2020-21. Travel ICU critical care nurses, the pay for travel went to $3,000 to $5,000 per week. RNs, $2,800 to $4,000. So an enormous rate hike. Now, Jackson Healthcare has received $1 billion, not just under this right here. We'll show you in a minute. We don't know what they were able to keep out of this. But when he says 1.5%, okay. Now, what hospitals and states were charged, the amount of nurses took home, is only part of the equation. Staffing agencies charged hospitals and state massive bill rates to cover their crisis wages, plus their own elevated profit margins. So I don't know how this works, but there is a such thing called cost plus, right? Cost plus. And there was crisis wages. So he says they read the contract, they only get 1.5%. Maybe at this time he can release some documents. I don't know. But we'll see. According to reporting at the AJC, at the height of the pandemic, hospitals like Grady Memorial were billed $222 per hour by staffing agencies for a single travel neurological ICU nurse. That does not say Jackson Healthcare. We're telling you these are general statements. Okay? The state contract. Now, here is the state contract. Because Brian Kemp's state of emergency suspended competitive bidding rules, the state executed a massive no-bid contract with Alpharetta-based Jackson Healthcare to supply these emergency nurses to overwhelmed hospitals. By the end of the public health emergency, the state of Georgia had paid more than $694 million to Jackson Healthcare for these crisis rates staffing. So when he talks about the debate and he talks about Governor Kemp called him, and Governor Kemp wouldn't do anything wrong, he's sure, and he only gets 1.5%, and people were dying. Yes, but this goes right in line of every single thing he says. He's playing on your emotion. He's trying to manipulate you. Why, Rick Jackson, he was saving lives. Well, Rick Jackson, he grew up poor. Well, Rick Jackson, why, it's all about the kingdom. Well, Rick Jackson, he's pro-life. Now, I'm proud to endorse Rick Jackson as Georgia's next governor. He has the background and experience to address our state's most challenging issues. Really, does he? Does he, Josh? Josh Bonner, Georgia State Representative, does he really have the background? His journey from growing up in poverty to foster care. Oh, that's right. To building a successful business uniquely qualifies Rick to lead our state. Does it? Where are these qualifications? Right? What are they? And when will you see how much of the $73,400,000 he has put into this campaign falls off into the pockets of any of these PACs? Right? So, net worth. Let's switch to Burt Jones for a minute. Net worth. It's been a question that shadows Lieutenant Governor Jones' campaign for governor and a persistent line of attack from several of the top GOP. How could someone who reported roughly $11 million in net worth loan himself $16 million? How come the AJC, how come none of these companies out there, media companies, how come no one is going down the line of Jackson why someone would spend $73,400,000? How come no one is going down any of these lines with Jackson and really digging into them? Why do they keep coming back with Burt Jones? I'll tell you what. His net worth, he loaned himself $16 million. He sure didn't put $73 million. And this is some kind of mystery. Now, let's keep in mind, the guy that is buying an election is changing the landscape of Georgia politics. He is changing it. Now, what would happen if he got into office? If you would have these people coming in left and right, telling him, sir, you can't do that. Sir, that's against the rules. Sir, we'll have to call legal first. We need to get an opinion before we go do this. Yes, because the establishment will surround Rick Jackson. He won't be able to get the things done he says he's going to do, but he only wants to be there one term. Now, remember, Jackson sued to block Jones for using the WBJ Leadership Committee to fund his 2026 gubernatorial campaign, arguing that Georgia campaign finance laws created an unconstitutional, uneven playing field. How can you say that? How can you call anything an unconstitutional, uneven playing field? You see, he just wanted to stop Burt Jones from using this. Now, I don't support these leadership PACs. I don't support the governor's leadership PAC, the Georgia State House, or the lieutenant governors. I don't support them at all. But has Rick Jackson went around the state saying on day one he will repeal these? Has he gone around the state saying on day one I will balance the uneven playing field for people that want to run for office? No, I'm going to sue to stop him from using money. Well, this is my money. Well, maybe Burt Jones's dad is using his. But this is my money. I'm going to put $74 million. You can't make any of this stuff up. Now, here's something that's interesting to me. They keep attacking Burt Jones. And first of all, I want to be perfectly clear with you. I don't know this family. I don't. I have never met, what's his dad's name? I have never met William Bill Jones in my life. I've never met him in my life, never said hi, never shook his hand. I've shook Rick Jackson's hand, okay? Nope, never have. But I tell you what I can do. I could go do some research and I can find their family. And Rick Jackson keeps going out there. He's from foster care to billionaire, foster care to billionaire. Okay? All right? And look what he's done. And it's amazing what he's done. And his hard work and Rick Jackson's perseverance. And he's done the right thing. Now, is Rick Jackson, everything he done, is it free market capitalism, spending his own money, billionaire. Why does that not apply to the Jones family? I find that interesting, right? Now, they will go on. I go, and you can Google this yourself. This is no secret. This is Bert's father. This is Bert's father, William Bill Jones. And I did some AI research. I called a couple people. And about a month ago, a guy calls me up about a month ago and he says, look, let me tell you about William Bill Jones. Let me tell you about him. Let me tell you how he started. Okay? Now, William Jones, which is Bert Jones's dad, he came from very humble, meager beginnings. His mom and dad, if the Jones family want to tell you the story, someone told me the story about, nothing negative, but Mr. Jones's parents being hardworking people, meager beginnings. And this individual told me this story. Well, I went on AI and I did research, and Bill Jones, it matched up. I was like, wow, the story this guy told me, he said, I've known Bill for years. And the story this guy told me matched up with what I could find on AI. The guy opened his first gas station in 1968. Yes, Jones Petroleum. His first convenience store was 1968. And then over the decade, he started growing more stores, right? And in 1982, he named it Jones Petroleum. And they have 50 fast food locations. I have to tell you, this sounds like someone that got up and went to work every day. I'm serious. I'm like, I have heard all these attacks from Rick Jackson. Like, these are the worst people that ever lived. And I don't know them. And I don't know if they've ever gained any benefits by who they are or anything like that, because God knows Rick Jackson has. Yes, he has had a lot of beneficial things take place in his company by who he knows and who he supports. Now, exactly what those are and what that equals, the I's dotted and T's crossed, I don't know. But yes, it's been beneficial to him. But this just sounds like a guy got up and go to work in the morning. Everything I can read. I'm serious. You can go look this up. And he had one gas station. He went to 2. He went to 3. Built a grocery store. Started building fast food. Sounds like a guy that went down on 75 South there, because years ago there was nothing once you got down that way, and took the money he was making and bought all the property he could buy in real estate. That's what it sounds like. Sounds like a guy that got up every day and went to work. Now, I don't have any derogatory stories, and sounds like capitalism to me. I mean, true market. And here's the other thing. I can go on there and I can find the whole family. You can go to Jones Petroleum and find the entire family. You can find his brother, his sister's husband, their daughter. You can find Bert's wife, Bert's son. You can find Bert's brother, Bert's son's wife, the 2 boys. You can find dad. You can find the whole entire family right there. Everybody's on there. Now, I don't know everybody. I've never met them. My only person I've ever met is Bert Jones and, his wife. But you can find them right on Jackson Petroleum. I mean, back up. You could find them right on Johnson Petroleum. Whew. 3 times the charm. Erase, erase, erase. Start over. You can find this whole family on the website at Jones Petroleum. Jones Petroleum. You can find them. Go look for yourself. Now, no matter how hard, all right, you look, you tell me you can't find but these guys here, Shane and Rick, in their office. I asked AI to find me the wife, the 3 kids, a family photo, a Christmas photo. If you could just go to AI and find one and Google it and send it to me, that's got Rick, his wife, the Christmas tree maybe, all the grandkids, their pups, their dogs. I mean, if you could do it, all right? That's Shane and Rick at the office. And here's Shane and Rick cutting the ribbon at Jackson Healthcare. That's all I could find. These people are not connected to you. They have no true family connection to you. They don't know you out there. They don't. It has been a lot of years since Rick Jackson was hungry. There's been a lot of years since Rick Jackson didn't have someone drive him, cut his grass, paint his mulch, whatever. Open doors for him. That's okay. But quit thinking this guy knows you and the other guy, why, he's just horrible. I mean, I'm just telling you. All right? Now, we've talked about the 73,400,000 roughly. Let's not forget, we haven't even made it to election day, not the runoff. Here is Georgia needs leadership who are honest. Georgians for integrity. Don't forget what they spent. Now, Rick Jackson denies that he has any involvement in this. As of May 2026, the advocacy group Georgians for Integrity has spent an estimated $16 million on a multi-channel campaign attacking Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, right? It started, the initial wave was December 2025. The group began with roughly 1 million ad buy for a 30-second television spot. Remember, it's just a coincidence to them that this happened, right, in December when Rick Jackson claims he was, paraphrasing, just sitting in the office one day and said, I think I'll run for governor. Bert, I don't think he can do it. So keep that in mind. The group was roughly 1 million. It expanded in January with the 5 million, and it has totaled right now, it seems to be 16 million. So, 16 million in dark money, right? 16 million in dark money. Right here, don't forget, 73,482,113.72. Then, right here, don't forget that on 4/27/2026, he loaned himself another $10 million, right? Don't forget, as we close, this is not my money. This is God's money. I'm using the money in order to make a difference in other people's lives. That's what I'm all about. I've been doing this for 15 years. And how about this? Let's go here. Don't forget what has changed here with this billionaire. Brian Kemp, total 2018. Brian Kemp ran a primary a runoff in the primary and a general election, and only spent a total of $21,400,000. $21,400,000. Don't forget. So, just saying, right? Just saying. Folks, this may be the last video I'm able to do for a day or two. Maybe the last one concerning the governor's race. Friday night, I will be with Roy Hambrick from 7 to 10 live, and we'll go over every single race. So I've been thinking about this. I generally don't do this. I don't like the word endorse. I don't like it, okay? Endorse implies, and I don't have the definition pulled up, but endorse implies that I'm asking you to vote for an individual. And I've always tried to stay clear away from telling you, hey, you go vote. But I've been thinking maybe I'll tell you how I will go vote, but I'll always make sure every program I do, every program you watch, every campaign you look at, everything you listen to, always judge it for what are they trying to get you to believe, right? And keep an eye on them manipulating the message, altering and manipulating the message to try to create an outcome to get you to believe something. Don't forget that. So Friday night, I may go down every race and tell you where I stand as far as voting for them. So if you're waiting for Election Day, I vote on Election Day. So that is Friday night, 7 to 9, with Roy Hambrick, Small Town Underground. And then Wednesday night, I'm going to be in Banks County, GOP. Going to be up there Wednesday night. And I'm going to probably write some more articles this week. We'll try to do some more videos. And don't forget, our Substack, Vora at BKP Politics. Don't hesitate. Go to Vora and check out all of our articles with graphs, facts, figures. And our articles are not as in-depth as the videos, but share them with your friends if you're trying to make a decision. And tell me, I mean, the Jones family, I'm not calling them squeaky clean in politics, but I will say this, looks like get up and go to work in the morning. That's what it looks like to me. All right, we're going to take a brief break. You know what that means.
With my 35 years of experience, our team at U.S. Asset Management can deliver professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call U.S. Asset Management today, and let's get to work in your financial future.
The left is siding with illegals, attacking ICE, and fighting to let non-citizens vote. Republican Kelvin King is a graduate of the Air Force Academy, Air Force veteran, and conservative businessman. As Georgia's Secretary of State, Kelvin will put Americans first, root out corruption, clean up voter rolls, and restore confidence in our elections. The other candidates had their chance and failed. Republican Kelvin King for Secretary of State, leadership Georgia voters can trust.
Pro-Trump warrior Steve Gooch won't just cut property taxes in Georgia. He'll throw them straight in the wood chipper.
Senior citizens on fixed income shouldn't be forced from their homes. Neither should veterans who have served our country and fought for our freedoms. And neither should anyone else for that matter. Frankly, these crazy property taxes are un-American. I'll tear them to shreds. We'll make home ownership great again.
Steve Gooch for Lieutenant Governor, toughest tax cutter Georgia's ever seen.
Do you already have your investments with Fidelity? I'm David Cross with U.S. Asset Management. Did you know that you can assign your investment management to my team and put my 35 years of experience to work for you? You simply assign us as your investment manager and you keep the same username and password. Professional management, and you get to work with someone who shares your values. Call U.S. Asset Management today and put us to work for you.